In the following instructional video, you will learn the basics of soldering. Let's begin with the definition. Soldering is the process of forming a metallic bond between two pieces of metal using an alloy, usually consisting of tin and lead. Here is a magnification of the surface of metal. You can notice that it is not smooth, but rather full of jagged grooves. This complements the solder when it reaches the right temperature. It fills in the gaps. When another metal object attaches, it makes a strong soldered bond. However, when all the contact points do not reach the same temperature, this is what happens. As you can see, there are gaps that form. Here is an example of an ideal solder joint. Notice that there are no gaps between the solder and the other metals. And this is an example of a bad joint. The solder touches the metal, but it does not make a full bond. As the electricity passes through this connection, the heat generated will cause the metal parts to oxidize, which will eventually result in a loss of connection. This is referred to as a cold solder joint. It is referred to cold because all solder parts did not reach the appropriate temperature. Here are the basic soldering tools: soldering iron, solder, soldering suckers, soldering wick. Here's an example of an electronic part being soldered onto a printed circuit board. First, thread pins through holes. Be sure to fold back wire in order to keep pieces stabilized. When beginning to solder, it's a good idea to tin the soldering iron for better heat transfer. When placing solder onto the board, it is important that all parts reach proper temperature. Also, be careful not to overheat the solder. Here's an example of the strength of solder. Make sure wire is stripped and bare of plastic coating. It is important for all soldering parts to be stabilized. This can be achieved through clamps. Tinning the wire creates a bond between the solder and the surface of the wire. Make sure you keep the iron tip clean. Now, all you have to do is melt the solder together. As you can see, the soldered point is still intact. That's the strength of solder. There are two basic techniques of desoldering. Using the solder wick, which, when heated, absorbs the solder, or using the solder sucker. It is a simple suction device. The procedure is simple. Heat the joint to make the solder liquid. Then, with the press of a button, the solder is removed. With time, you might develop your own preferences to which method to use in a given situation. Be careful using the soldering iron. Temperatures can reach up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Solder consists of tin and lead. Do not breathe the vapors. They are toxic. Make sure you are in a well-ventilated area. Solder can splash. Wear safety glasses. Just like everything else, soldering takes practice. It may take a few tries before you become comfortable with it. We hope these instructions and safety precautions will prove useful to you in the future.